What's up, guys? Tim Little. Welcome back to Tactical Bassin. Today's video, we are covering my top 5 baits to catch bass in the month of January. It is cold, but the bass still bite, and now is one of the best times of the year to catch your PB, to get the biggest bite of the biggest fish in your fishery. I love fishing in January. Yes, it's cold. Yes, you have to layer up and put the proper gear on, but you typically have the lake to yourself. There's not a lot of boat traffic, and you get to fish the key spots, the best spots, with the best baits, so you're upping your chances to catch the fish of a lifetime. Like I said, I love fishing January. I love throwing moving baits. You know, we can really tap into that predatory instinct of that bass, really get them to chase and eat. I love throwing moving baits, so we got some moving baits for you, got some finesse baits for you. Should be a good one. Let's go. My number one bait this time of the year, month of January, is going to be the Alabama rig. You guys know I love throwing the A rig. We've caught so many big fish doing it. It is the epitome of throwing a bait that looks like a ball of bait fish. This is the tactical mini flex. You guys know that we designed this a few years ago. Light wires. They're not going to break, but they're light enough that when you add that reel twitch, when you add that handle of the reel twitch or that rod twitch, that whole school of bait condenses and then expands, and boom, you get bit. But an A-rig, especially with that colder water, slowing down this time of the year, just really produces bites for me when I can't really catch them on anything else. This cool little A-rig holder. One tip for you guys that like throwing Alabama rigs: if you're throwing an A-rig in colder, typically are in January, in colder, clearer water, that's when I really like going with a bladeless A-rig. Sometimes you're gonna have 20, 30, 40 foot of visibility, sometimes even more if you're fishing the Great Lakes. Not this time of the year because you're ice fishing, but you're gonna have a lot of visibility. You don't need all that vibration and flash. So if I find myself on a clear water highland or lowland reservoir, when that water temp's down in like the, I don't know, mid to low 40s, a lot of visibility, I'm throwing a rig without blades. I don't need all that extra flash and vibration. Typically how I run my A-rig this time of the year, whether it be a bladed or non-bladed, I'm going with my dummy baits on top. Again, having that tactical mini flex from Hog Farmer, we went with a 6-wire rig. So 3 dummy baits, 3 longer wires that you can put you know, hooked baits on. But I'm running, that's the Demiki Armor Shad, the paddle tail. It's a really narrow, tight kind of wobble or kick, or a Kitech Easy Shiner. Same thing, real tight kick. And then back here, I'm going either 3.3s, 3.8, or maybe a 4.3 on the back as my rig. But for the most part, they always eat the bigger, farther back bait. So you could really run one hook if you wanted, but an A-rig, hands down, is I mean, you guys just saw during that Christmas video, they just eat it. They really, really love eating that A-rig, and it's so much fun. Number 2 for me is going to be that speed crank, okay? You guys know how much we love throwing a fast-moving crankbait in cold, almost freezing water. It's unbelievable having I mean, you'll never experiencing anything like having an 8 or 9 or 10-pound largemouth follow your crankbait that you're burning to the surface to pull your bait out of the water to make another cast. It's snowing outside and you see that big old mouth open up and you just freeze and it engulfs that bait. you're gonna remember that bite for the rest of your life. There's not many other fishing bites that will scare you or shock you than a big old bass eating a fast moving crankbait as you're trying to pull it out of the water in 35 to 45 degree water temps. It is insane, and it messes with your mind because it goes against everything that we've ever been taught or told about bass fishing in the wintertime. We always think that we have to drag a drop shot or drag a jig, you know, kind of bundle up and be cold. But same thing with that A-rig. I'm throwing it on a 7 or an 8-to-1 gear, typically a 7-to-1. If I'm throwing it on an 8-to-1 gear ratio reel, I usually fish it too fast. But the speed crank, 7 or 8-to-1 gear ratio reel, and it's burn, 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 pause. Burn, burn, pause. You hit a piece of cover, pause. On that pause, they knock slack in your line. They hit it so hard. So the speed crank, you guys know that we designed this bait several years ago to have a really tight wobble. You don't want a big wide wobble this time of the year like you would in the summertime or warmer water, warmer weather months. You want a real tight wobble, a real specific sound, and you want really good colors, real shad colors, bait fish colors, ghosty colors, because like I said, a lot of time this time of the year you're going to have really good visibility. So tactical DD crank, 2 other ones for you. The Megabass Deep 6, a lot deeper diving. This is like your 18 to 20 foot range. Again, it's a finesse wobble, real tight wobble. Look how thin or narrow that lip is. You can throw this on 10 or 12 pound fluorocarbon. Again, it gets down deep, has that real tight wobble, and will produce bites, trigger those bites, even when those fish aren't in a feeding mood or want to eat. So the speed crank is really something that is magical, and it's been so cool through the years to see your guys' PBs and your guys' fish catches. You guys send us the emails and the pictures and all that stuff, catching them on the speed crank, you know, on our bait. It's just, it's really rewarding to see all that success. So the 1-2 punch, tactical DD, the Deep 6, and then one other one for you. If you're a fisherman that is typically fishing a fishery that has a ton of rock, chunk rock, that sort of stuff, a little bit shallower, like 8 to 10, go with that Spro rock crawler. Wide body, wide bill, but it's a cold water crankbait. Speed cranking, cold water cranking, it is a thing, and you guys need to be doing it. Number 3. Some kind of swim bait. Either the Savage Gear, a Huddleston, or heck, even a 4.8 Kitech. If you're not a guy that has the ability or the shoulder or the strength to throw a bait like this, throw a smaller swim bait, but some kind of swim bait. Typically this time of the year, I'm throwing the larger stuff. I'm going for the biggest fish in the lake. I get to fish the key spots of the lake, right? So I'm throwing the biggest, dumbest meal possible. These fish are cold. Against popular belief, they will straight up choke a giant 8, 10, 12 inch bait. Even a 4-pound large, I've caught 3-pound largemouth on a 12 inch swim bait. They eat it, right? Don't be afraid to throw the big baits. This time of the year, cold water, it's really important to throw the wedge style bait. You don't want to typically be throwing a boot tail swim bait. Just like that crankbait, you want a specific movement. You don't want a real aggressive wide kick. You want something that is slow and subtle. Puts off that little subtle movement. I mean, just looks so real. The Savage Gear comes in some cool colors, has that little area back here where you can run a stinger hook. Obviously the 8-inch Huddleston has probably produced more double-digit bass than any other swim bait, any other lure, let alone swim bait. But these guys really produce. And then again, guys, if you can't physically do it, or you don't have a proper swim bait rod, because you will, you're going to need a swim bait rod, a swim bait reel. Typically we're throwing 65 or 80 pound braid to a mono leader, or straight fluorocarbon, depends on the water clarity. But throwing some kind of swim bait, okay? Take that Kitech, take that 4.8. Like I said, if you're a guy that can't, or gal that can't throw these big baits, either physically or you don't have that right gear, take your favorite jig rod, take your favorite medium to medium heavy power spinning rod, and get yourself a swim bait head and a 4.3 or 4.8 Kitech, and do the same. You guys will catch fish. But a swim bait, it's in my top 3, especially this time of the year. You know, going back way back when, I can't tell you how many times, I mean, back when Matt and I had more free time to fish together before, you know, kids and all that stuff. You know, we're out in the wintertime, January, we're out 1, 2, 3 in the morning, just freezing, and sticking 10, 12 big, large, pound largemouth. And nothing will get you warmer than setting the hook on a big old heavy swim bait bite when you're freezing out on the boat in the middle of winter, in the middle of the night. Just throwing that big swim bait, throwing a big jig, they just eat it. But that guy right there, that Savage gear, is a must for me. Now, switching gears, let's talk a couple finesse baits. Because I can't go all power fishing, I can't go all, fast moving baits for you. We're going with a finesse football jig paired up with a twin tail grub, double tail grub, whatever you want to call it, but a finesse football jig, okay? This is my cold water finesse setup. Got that thing paired up with a 7'6" rod. This specific rod and reel is a straight fluorocarbon. This one I had fishing Dale Hollow. You guys out here in East Tennessee know what a amazing fishery that is, and the history, the world record smallmouth. Just fishing cold water, fishing deeper water. This technique, I am dragging. I'm not moving quickly like the power fishing or the reaction fishing, but dragging. Again, I'm watching that rod tip, looking for that deflection. A lot of times as they're eating this bait, they're not really thumping it like they would in the warm weather, warm water months. It's just kind of that, kind of feels like you hooked into like a wet rag, or just kind of mushy feeling. You'll watch that rod tip just load up, and you reel down and jack them. And that guy right there, a finesse football jig. You can fish it highland reservoirs, lowland reservoirs, secondary, main lake points, fish rock, fish that mud transition, but you need to have some kind of jig in the wintertime. In January, this thing gets bit. I will link my favorite colors, favorite trailers down below in the video description. If you want to downsize, you can go with a smaller jig, a mini jig, Kitech or Miss will make great ones, but some kind of jig, some kind of bottom contact bait that I can fish slowly. Pay attention to those fish. You'll see, you might catch a swimbait fish, or you might catch an A-rig fish or a crankbait fish, but look at those fish and see if they have orange or red lips or orange or red bellies. That'll tell you if those fish are down there rooting around in the mud. Kind of key you into those rock to mud transitions where they like to sit this time of the year. Now, last but not least, how do you do a top 5 video in January without talking about some kind of truly finesse bait? It was a toss-up. It was actually harder this year because there's so many a lot cooler or newer finesse techniques to the industry, either mid-strolling or, Demiki rigging or drop shotting. So it was really tough throwing a hair jig like a fly. So having to narrow it down to 5, I went with the Ned Rig. So a lot like the jig, I do have a football head on that Ned Rig, sunset, and hopefully you guys can see that. But if I need to catch a bass and see if there are fish in this lake and I just don't suck, I'm going with the Ned Rig, because that is kind of that, or a little small, real small finesse swim bait, dragging that on bottom. But the Ned Rig with that football head on there, it comes through rock really well, comes through that chunk rock, pea gravel, mud. I like the Ned Rig. It's not intrusive, it's not overwhelming, it won't spook the fish. You can if it gets really tough, you can shut off your graphs, turn off your electronics, drop your troll motor slowly, just ultra finessey, fire out to that main lake point or the best spot in your lake. That's the benefit of being out there in January when it's cold. You're on that best spot, there's probably not a lot of other boats out on the lake, and you've tried everything else, go with that Ned rig. Either the Ned Cinco, the X Zone, the TRD, your favorite Ned rig, just something with not a lot of action. You just want some real subtle, real natural looking baits. Your green pumpkins, your natural shads, your electric shads, stuff like that, your crawdad patterns. But couldn't do the top 5 in January without adding the Ned rig in there. It's saved my butt so many times. Look, we all struggle. I've been out on bites where it's just epic. I'm cracking them on an A-rig, or I'm cracking them on a swim bait or a crankbait. And then all of a sudden the next day, I cannot buy a bite. You got maybe different barometric pressure, you got different weather, you know, something changes, and then you have to go with that jig, you gotta go with that Ned rig to get a bite. So make sure you guys have at least 1 or 2 of these techniques tied on if you guys are out fishing this time of the year. But I wanna congratulate you if you are, because it truly is an awesome time to get out on the water. January, it's typically the coldest month. Sometimes there can be ice on the water. I have literally launched into ice, but we still catch fish. Those fish still need to eat. And like I said, you have the key spots to yourself. Throwing the right baits will help you guys produce this time of the year. Guys, if you have any questions, please leave those down below in the comment section. I'll try to get those as soon as possible. But these top 5 techniques, these baits right here are my confidence baits, and that I have on the boat or with me the next couple months. So like I said, I will link all this stuff down below in the video description for you. You can click on it, you'll get HD pictures right to these specific baits and colors on Tackle Warehouse. Guys, as always, thank you for the support, thank you for watching, and we will see you guys on the next video.